It's Halloween. Wake me up in November. Wait. Oh no, I'm late! All right. Has NASCAR finally reached a boiling point when it comes to respect on the racetrack? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope your week is off to a fantastic start. It's officially November. I'm still feeling the effects of yesterday's crazy cutoff race at Martinsville. We're gonna talk about what some of the drivers said after that race and after some of the other races this weekend, and talk about NASCAR more broadly, specifically racing etiquette, respect between drivers, things like that. But first, this episode is sponsored by Fission Energy. Fission is the first ever customizable energy drink. And what exactly do I mean by that? I'll show you in just a moment. They sent me a bunch of their unique flavors to try out: Jackpot, Florida Man, E.T. Ooh. But my favorite, at least of the ones I've tried so far, has to be Nocturnal. Every flavor of Fission Energy has no sugar and 0 calories. And here's what I meant by customizable. To enjoy Fission Energy, simply fill the bottle with water, select your favorite flavor and screw it into the top, and then using the special dial, you can decide just how strong you want that flavor to be. I've enjoyed trying out all the different flavors, but I want to hear what you guys think. Fans of Out of the Groove can get a special discount. Head to drinkfission.com/EricEstep, link is down in the description below, to get 10% off your order. Or if you don't go through that link, you can still use code EricEstep-10 to get that same discount. Give Fission Energy a try and let me know what your favorite flavor is. Thanks to Fission Energy for supporting Out of the Groove and keeping this show fully charged. Has NASCAR finally reached a boiling point? All weekend long at Martinsville, the conversation was about respect, driver etiquette. In all 3 races this past weekend, drivers and fans commented on how certain drivers chose to race their competitors at certain stages of the race. Saturday's Truck Series race saw 14 caution flags for 88 laps, nearly half the entire distance. And obviously Sunday's Cup Series race saw the leaders make contact. Alex Bowman spinning out Denny Hamlin in the closing laps sparked a confrontation after the checkered flag. Well, last night after I'd posted my race recap video, after many race fans had probably gone to sleep, Denny Hamlin sent a few tweets saying, "I don't expect you to understand my emotions. You don't see the time I spend working on my craft. You don't see the work these teams put in. You haven't been taken out twice in the last 10 weeks, one costing us the regular season championship, the other nearly ending our season. I don't care what your opinions are. I don't care what you think of me. You don't know me. Reverse the roles with your favorite driver. Feel the same? There's obviously a lack of respect out there that needs to be earned back. The easy way or the hard way." When I saw those tweets, I knew I had to talk about this in a video this week. Firstly, just reacting to those tweets by themselves, Denny Hamlin needs to shift his focus to Phoenix ASAP. He put another tweet out that makes me think he has moved on. Denny Hamlin's no stranger to confrontation. This isn't even the first time he's been booed at his home track. So I think Denny Hamlin will be fine. He, of course, is in the championship 4. We'll talk more about that later in the week. But, Alex Bowman is not making things easier on Hamlin. Last night, he started selling t-shirts that say "hack" across the chest. I don't know what it is. Back in the day, we saw fist fights. Then, things have shifted over to social media. We see Twitter fights, Twitter arguments. Now we're seeing t-shirt fights. This is the second Hendrick driver in these playoffs alone to release a t-shirt about some sort of on or off track confrontation they've had with another driver. Of course, Chase Elliott's Merry Offseason Happy Christmas shirt is the other one. I mean, I don't love it. I think some of it's a little cringe, honestly, but I don't hate it either. I mean, do what you gotta do. Keep people talking. Rally your supporters. I get it. But going back to one specific line in Denny Hamlin's tweets, there's a lack of respect out there that needs to be earned back. That's what I want to focus on. It reminded me of an article I read a few weeks ago, a quote I heard from Kyle Busch after the Texas race. I read this in a Racer.com article. Kyle Busch said 2 weeks ago, "There's a complete lack of respect everywhere, all over the place. So it doesn't matter if it's a playoff driver or a non-playoff driver. The way all this has gone over the last 4 or 5 years with a newer generation coming in has completely ruined it from what it used to be. Now, it might be exciting for the fans, but all you get is more torn up stuff. And next year, these car owners are not going to enjoy paying the bills on that new car. I guarantee it." Another veteran driver, in this case a 2-time championship driver, talking about what he believes is a lack of respect on the racetrack. I know some of y'all are probably thinking, who who does Kyle Busch think he is talking about respect? But I still think he can make some good points. But it's that last part of Kyle Busch's quote that is why we need to talk about this. NASCAR has an all-new car set to hit the racetrack this coming February. The next-gen car is expected to make it more affordable to run a full-time Cup Series team, at least in the long term, but part of the reason it's expected to be more affordable is because theoretically teams will be able to reuse specific next-gen cars more frequently. Now, you can't reuse a car that's destroyed because of an on-track incident. On a per-car level, I believe the next-gen car will be more expensive than the current Gen 6, but teams theoretically won't need to buy as many of them. That's one of the ways they should, in the long run, help save costs. But if you're wrecking them every week, it's not going to save you any money. It's probably going to cost you some money. Now, Kyle Busch puts the blame on the younger drivers. He says the younger generation coming in has ruined everything. Get off my lawn! In all fairness, I think he has a little bit of a point at least. I mean, just this weekend at Martinsville alone, and I know it's Martinsville, and I know the current NASCAR playoff format, with Martinsville being a cutoff race, you could say encourages more aggressive racing because late in the season, every race matters more, every point matters that much more. Drivers with the win in your in system get desperate sometimes, so the playoff format obviously plays a role. Martinsville plays a role, so I'll keep that in mind. But just this weekend alone, we saw a lot of funny business in the Xfinity race. Ty Gibbs, Sam Mayer, two teenagers racing each other early in the race aggressively, and Ty Gibbs just brake checks Sam Mayer for no reason. He was mad about something and just brake checks Mayer, destroys the right front of Mayer's car. Like, I like Ty Gibbs, but that was honestly uncalled for. That was a cheap shot. Looking at that hectic Truck Series race, you saw John Hunter Nemechek, championship contender, playoff driver, just get hooked by Austin Wayne Self. Hard into the outside wall, nearly cost John Hunter Nemechek a championship 4 spot, which would have been a huge upset. That was obviously uncalled for. And then of course on the final overtime restart, you had Zane Smith desperate to get into the championship 4 with a win, pushing Todd Gill a little bit. Nothing egregious from Zane Smith in my opinion. It is just Martinsville. You're going to bump a little bit late in the race, but still no shortage of bumpers from really anyone, young drivers and veteran drivers at the end of that truck race. Stuart Friesen obviously hooking Todd Gill in on the final lap. Some ugly stuff there. And Friesen actually is a veteran driver, but still, Kyle Busch does have somewhat of a point. I do think the younger drivers coming up into the Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series the last 5 or 10 years are generally more aggressive than the most recent generation. I can't fully speak to what racing looked like in the 60s and 70s, and I've seen some races from the 80s. Guys bumped each other, spun out quite a bit, I get it, but I feel like growing up in the early 2000s with drivers like, Mark Martin, Matt Kenseth, the culture of racing in the early to mid 2000s and into the late 2000s seemed a little more respectful than it does today. So Kyle Busch might have somewhat of a point that younger drivers coming up through the ranks are a bit over aggressive. They've completely changed what the driver code used to be, what racing etiquette used to be considered. But I will push back on Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin's statements a little bit, because this weekend we also saw some young drivers who have previously been thought of as very aggressive surprise us. Namely Noah Gragson and actually Austin Cindric. Really the entire end of the Xfinity race Saturday night shocked me. On the second to last restart, Noah Gragson, who's gotten into it with plenty of drivers this year alone, was restarting on the outside of Daniel Hemrick. He was not the control car, yet he raced Hemrick cleanly, fair and square, and beat Hemrick straight up on that restart to take the lead and ultimately go on to win the race. It wasn't all easy for him because then on the final lap, going into turns 3 and 4 for the final time, he washed up the track a little bit and gave Austin Cindric, another driver, used to be known as Austin Spindrick, a very aggressive driver back in the day. He gave Cindric a huge opening to go in there, rough him up, run him up the track, run him into the wall, whatever he had to do, and Austin Cindric raced him cleanly as well. They drag raced to the start-finish line, photo finish without running into each other. I was stunned. Granted, in the case of Austin Cindric, he did not need to win that race to make the playoffs. Noah Gragson did. So it doesn't surprise me that Cindric stayed away from Gragson, but the fact that Gragson really didn't put the bumper to anyone. He did spin Ty Gibbs out a restart or two before that, but you could argue that was just a general stack up. That was typical Martinsville. He tried to cut down in front of Cindric. Cindric was going into the corner too late, gave a bump to Gragson, basically nudged him up into Ty Gibbs, but as we talked about earlier, Ty Gibbs had irritated a lot of drivers earlier in the night, so I'll chalk that one up to just Martinsville. Point is, Noah Gragson and Austin Cindric, two typically thought of as aggressive drivers, raced each other cleanly down the stretch at Martinsville. So sometimes young drivers can surprise us. But my other point that I want to counter Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin with is that we're also seeing veteran drivers make the same over-aggressive mistakes. Going back to the truck race, 43-year-old Johnny Sauter got into Parker Kligerman. Kligerman came back out and retaliated, of course, and this is what Parker Kligerman said afterwards. The kids spin you out, the veterans spin you out. It's just ridiculous. There's no empathy or any sort of race etiquette at these places. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Hated that we had to do that. That was from kicking the tires. And I mentioned Stuart Friesen, another veteran race car driver, desperate to make it into the championship four, just hooked Todd Gilliland into the outside wall on the final lap and ultimately ended up wrecked himself as well. Brad Keselowski, a veteran driver, got into Chase Elliott, racing aggressively for the final championship spot and spun Chase Elliott out. So to push back a little against Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, it's not just the younger generation. You could argue they started it. I think they've set the tone in recent years. I think really beginning with Joey Logano especially. He set the tone in the last 10, 12 years that you gotta be aggressive. This new younger generation doesn't take any prisoners. They race selfishly. They're not looking out for anyone else. They're hardly even looking out for their teammates. They're looking out for themselves, their team, their sponsors, their best interests. I think it started in a lot of ways with Joey Logano. I mean, it's been going on forever, but Joey Logano, as far as this most recent generation, seemed to be the first step. He was the first, young driver irritating the veterans like Hamlin and Kenseth and Busch and Mark Martin and, oh goodness, the list goes on. But you get my point. You could say that the younger generation started it, but the veteran drivers are just as guilty these days of the same over-aggressive, you could say disrespectful racing. So what should NASCAR, if anything, do about it? I was reading an article from NBC Sports. They put together some quotes from drivers after the truck race, which of course, like I said, had 88 laps of caution. John Hunter Nemechek was talking about getting hooked by Austin Wayne Self, and he said, "There's nothing that NASCAR has done. It's just like the Self incident. It's blatant that he just hooked me in the right rear for no apparent reason and wrecked us. That was that. There should be some type of consequence there." So John Hunter Nemechek, Truck Series Championship contender, is calling on NASCAR to step in more than they have, at least in recent years. Matt Crafton, veteran driver, Truck Series champion, took a slightly different angle, more old-fashioned angle of this argument. If they wreck you, at the end of the day, don't just talk about it, do something about it. That's my motto. These guys work too hard, sponsors pay too much money to get wrecked and be shown no class like that. Just bust somebody in the mouth and that will fix that. So, two different perspectives there. Should NASCAR get involved or should the drivers get physical with each other? Look, I don't want to see NASCAR race controller officials become any more like the FIA than they already have. I don't like NASCAR making judgment calls in the moment. Like during the Cup race yesterday, I understand there was a safety truck near the incident, but when Quinn Houff went out and spun the 52 or the 53, whoever it was, under caution, NASCAR just came down angrily and slapped a 5-lap penalty on them. Like, I mean, it sounds like that's just a judgment call. They could have handed them 2 laps, 3 laps, 10 laps, whatever they wanted. They just sort of made it up as they went along. I know they've given 5-lap penalties for other incidents in the past, but it's not clearly defined in the rule book is my point. NASCAR just felt like that was worth a 5-lap penalty in the moment, and that's what they handed down. So I don't want to see NASCAR have more of those judgment calls. I don't want to see those types of judgments play bigger roles in racing. So I'm wary of John Hunter Nemechek's perspective saying that we should let NASCAR have more say and have NASCAR start, cracking down on what they deem to be over-aggressive driving, because I think that's a slippery slope. It's too gray of an area, I'd argue. But at the same time, we can't have drivers punching each other in the face every week. I don't really think that's going to change anything. I don't know that just getting in someone's face over and over again is really going to deliver the message. And I don't want to see guys going out and weaponizing their cars. I don't want to see what Kenseth did to Logano in 2015 at Martinsville happen again. I was a big Matt Kenseth fan, and I fully believe that Joey Logano and Team Penske had some sort of retaliation coming, but I don't think the way Matt Kenseth handled that would have been the way I would have handled it. And with the next gen car, we especially can't have drivers going out there and intentionally KOing each other like we've seen at times in the past. So I don't think that can be an option either. That makes this a very difficult issue to solve. I don't want to see NASCAR get too involved. I don't want to see NASCAR have too big of a say in these races, but I don't think drivers policing themselves is having much of a positive effect. Ultimately, as a racing fan, what I want to see is hard, aggressive, but fair racing. I want the driver who is under attack for position to have the opportunity to defend themselves. I don't want to see NASCAR racing culture completely devolve into just whoever can hit their opponents the hardest wins. It does not take much skill to just run into things, in my opinion. Perhaps the answer lies with the team owners. Maybe the team owners need to get more involved. Maybe team owners should hire drivers that they believe won't be overly aggressive out there. Maybe that's the future. Maybe over-aggressive drivers who have a history of getting into it with others, who have a history for stepping over that limit repeatedly, maybe they start to land less rides. I know that's always been a factor that team owners consider, but here we are. We see seemingly more aggressive drivers than ever racing in the top ranks of NASCAR. So maybe that's where things begin to change, is with who the team owners decide to hire or how team owners, discuss things with their drivers. What's the game plan? Maybe team owners need to step in and instill some sort of new driver code in their racers. Maybe that's where it lies. I have no idea, but that's why I wanted to make this video. I wanted you guys in the comments to share your thoughts down below. Do you think disrespectful driving is a problem in current NASCAR? Do you think the driver should handle it? Do you think NASCAR should step in? Leave your comments down below. I look forward to hearing your responses. Thank Thank you to Work Pro Tools for sponsoring yet another rambling video. It feels like this is a trend lately, but I do seriously appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching. That's gonna do it for this episode. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. And as always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I couldn't do the show without your tremendous support. Lots more to come this week. We still have to talk about the championship at Phoenix, as well as any other news that may come out here before the season wraps up this weekend. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.